Summer?
Yeah, or before summer.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Same Maimon. Right. So that means we'll be able to go through it quickly. Right. Okay, there are 20 parts to the Maimer, meaning the Frierdiker Rebbe gave out 4 Maimarim to our Rebbe. Each Maimer had 5 chapters. The first Maimer is all we're learning. This is the Maimer that we chazer every year on Yud Shvat. Someone will say, after Marav, Shachris, and Mincha, we'll say 1, 2, and 2, or 2, 2, and 1, or 2, 1, and 2, whatever. Meaning we'll say 5 parts in 3 installments. Because this Maimer was given by the Frierdiker Rebbe to our Rebbe on Yud Shvat. Well, it was given on Tes Shvat. It was given to give out to the Hasidim on 4 different days. Anybody remember the days? Know the days? Never knew the days? Can make up the days? Yud Shvat, which was the previous Rebbe's grandmother's yortzeit. Rebbetzin Rivka, Rebbe Marash's wife, Rebbe Marash's Rebbetzin. That was Yud Shvat. Yud Gimel Shvat, the 6 chapters 6 through 10 were to be given out on Yud Gimel Shvat, the Frierdiker Rebbe's mother's yortzeit, right? Rebbetzin Stern Sarah. The third Maimer, chapters 11 through 15, were to be given out on Purim, and were given out on Purim. And the fourth Maimer, chapters 16 through 20, were to be given out on Beis Nisan, the Frierdiker Rebbe's father's yortzeit, the Rebbe Rashab's yortzeit. So 4 Maimarim, each 5 chapters. Our Rebbe then, if I had a book, I would hold it up and you would see. But I don't have a book, I have this little booklet. So there's 2 volumes of Sifrei Maimarim Basi Legani. Why are there 2 volumes? Well, because our Rebbe then every single year said a Maimer Basi Legani. Every year, Yud Shvat, in the Yud Shvat for bringing, the Rebbe would say a Maimer Basi Legani and would explain one of the 20 chapters and went in order, 1 through 20. All right? So from Tafshin Yud Aleph, the Rebbe explained the first ois, Tafshin Yud Beis, the second ois, etc., until Tafshin Lamed. That was ois 20. Tafshin Lamed Aleph, the Rebbe started again. That's 1971. The Rebbe started again. So we have 2 Maimarim for almost, not quite, because the Rebbe didn't finish it the second time. The Rebbe stopped saying Maimarim after the Rebbetzin passed away, so in Tafshin Mem Ches, the Rebbe stopped saying Maimarim. So we don't have the last few chapters a second time. But we have most of the Maimer, 2 Maimarim of our Rebbe explaining the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer. The Rebbe said a Basi Legani Maimer more than 40 times, our Rebbe, right? Every year. Every year on Yud Shvat, which is a month away, so we're not learning this now because it's a month to Yud Shvat. We're learning this now just because it's information that everybody has to know very, 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 very well. Once you know this information well, so then the rest of Chassidus becomes something learnable, especially the first chapter. Every year we learn one of the Maimarim, 2 of the Maimarim, that the Rebbe said relative to the year in the cycle, right? 20-year cycle. It just keeps repeating on itself. So I'll do in Goyish years. 1951 to 1970, the Rebbe said 20 Maimarim, right? Then the next cycle was 1971 to 1990. The Rebbe, in those 40 years, the Rebbe was saying Maimarim the whole time. Then 1991, so the cycle started again at the beginning, not with new Maimarim, but with the first Maimer the Rebbe said in the first cycle, and the second Maimer the Rebbe said in the second cycle. So it's 1991 to 2010, 2011 to 2030, it will end, the 4th cycle. This year we're in the 16th year of the 4th cycle, which means the Maimarim that everybody's going to learn this year for Yud Shvat, and a little choveret will come out that looks like this, only it'll be bigger, because it'll have 2 Maimarim in it. It'll have Tafshin Chaf Vav and Tafshin Mem Vav. Those 2 years Maimarim, right? Tafshin Chaf Vav is 1966. Tafshin Mem Vav is 1986. Those 2 Maimarim will be in the choveret that we're all it's going to show up at some point before Yud Shvat. you can, soon it's going to also show up on Lubavitch websites. You'll be able to download it and print it if you haven't run into one yet. And so everybody, Lubavitch is all over the world. The nice thing about Yud Shvat, it's the only holiday everybody learns the same Chassidus. Everybody's koching in the same Maimarim, so everybody's for bringing about the same Maimarim, so everybody's talking about the same Maimarim. In the mikveh, you don't talk about Maimarim in the mikveh, right? But that's what, and it's the only holiday. Rosh Hashanah, so everybody has a Maimer, they learn. Someone's learning the Rebbe Shab, someone's learning the Rebbe's Maimer, someone's learning the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer, someone else is learning the Alter Rebbe on Rosh Hashanah. All the holidays are like that, except Yud Shvat. Yud Shvat, everybody's learning the same environment. It's very, very special. No matter who you talk to, you can always say, "Oh, you learn Chavav? No, I'm learning Memvav." Oh, Memvav. Oh, and you can tell you that's what people talk about on the bus, the subway, waiting at a red light, open the windows. Hello, you learn Memvav? The guy looks at you, doesn't know what you're talking about. He answers you in Arabic. Bosi, legani, pasuk in shiur. I've come to my garden, my sister, my bride. We're going to see a certain style of medrash, and it's going to repeat itself twice as a medrash, and a third time the Frierdiker Rebbe is going to borrow that style to explain something. Exactly the same style. And what's the style? Visa b'medrash Rabbah b'mkeme. It says in Medrash Rabbah, in its place. Its place is Shir Shirim Rabbah. Right? We've talked about this before, but everybody has to know. Right? There's 5 books of Medrash Rabbah, Bereshis Rabbah, Shmeis Rabbah, etc., until Devarim Rabbah. There are also 5 more books of Bereshis Rabbah. All of the 5 Megillos have a Medrash Rabbah that are found in the back of the main Medrash Rabbah. Medrash Rabbah is one of the main, probably the biggest compilation of Medrash Chazal outside of Talmud Bavli. Right? So Rashi on Chumash in Bereshis, almost all Medrash Rabbah, almost all Bereshis Rabbah, right? Most of it. There's also Esther Rabbah, Rus Rabbah, right? All of them Megillot. So there's also Shir Shirim Rabbah. And if you look over there in Shir Shirim Rabbah, the Chassidim like to say this, it means anything, it doesn't mean anything, I have no clue, but it's cute and picanti, right? I'll take out the word cute. It's picanti, it's interesting. I mean, because everybody wanted to know why the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote this mimer. He said this mimer in the Pays, I think Pei Gimel or Pei Zayin. The Rebbe said a mimer very, 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 very similar to this. This mimer was written in Tafshin Yud to be given out to the Chassidim in 1950. So the Rebbe wrote these words b'mkeme. If you look over there, it just happens to be interesting in historical perspective because the Rebbe gave this mimer, Frierdiker Rebbe gave this mimer to our Rebbe to give out to us on the day that became the passing of the Frierdiker Rebbe, where the new generation was about to begin, and there were 2 sons-in-law. Right? There was an older son-in-law and a younger son-in-law. The younger son-in-law is the one you know as the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Right? So there was an older son-in-law, and if you look over there, the author of this statement, it says, Amar Rabbi Menachem Chasnei. Rabbi Menachem, his son-in-law, said. Does that mean anything? I don't know. It's interesting. Legan, what did he say over there in the Medrash? Legan ein ksiv kan legani. Again, that's the style of Medrash. Legan ein ksiv. It doesn't write legan, basi legan. Ella, rather, what does it say? Ella legani. To my garden, Lignuni, to my resting place, Lamakam Shayikari Betchila, to the place that was my original place, to Iker Shechina B'Tachtainim Haisa, that the essence of the divine presence was in the lower realms. Our Rebbe spends a great deal of time explaining those four words in the beginning of his first mimer, which was a year after this, Yud Aleph Shvat Tavshin Yud Aleph. Right? Okay, keep reading. Val Yedei Chet Eitz Hadas, through the Chet Eitz Hadas, the sin of the tree of knowledge, Nistalka Shechina Me'aretz L'Rakia, the Shechina receded out of the world, from Aretz to Rakia, to the first level of Shemayim, of heaven, some metaphysical place. Val Yedei Chet Kain Ve'enish, and through more wrongdoing, and if we're going to discuss different levels of wrongdoing in the first 20 generations of the world's history. Cain, we know what he did. What did Enosh do? Cain, we know he killed his brother. That pushed godliness out of the world. What did Enosh do? Enosh is probably very happy that you don't know, right? I mean, I'd feel bad if I was Enosh. There I am in the Torah, and it's like there for everybody to see, right? Enosh was the first Oved of Avodah. He was the first idol worshiper. Whether or not he did it as an intellectual mistake, that's the Rambam's position, or as an act of evil, that's the Ramban's position. But whatever, he is the first one who began worshiping idols. He didn't really worship idols. They were sun, moon. Idols happened later. So that's Enosh. So what happened? They pushed the Shechina Mirakia Aleph Lebei Sugim. We're going to come back to all this. We're going to have to understand all this. And afterwards, Bador Hamabel, in the Dor Hamabel, Nistalka Mirakia Gimel Ladalit. The Dor Hamabel, the generation of the flood, pushed Shechina out of the world from the third to the fourth level. Okay, so godliness is being pushed out of the world. And this culminates, what are the next three? We saw four. What are the next three? Dor HaFlog in the Medrash. Dor HaFloga, the people of the Tower of Babel. Sdoim, nasty people in Sdoim that we read about relative to Avram's nephew Lot. And the Mitzrim, but not the Mitzrim of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Mitzrim of Avram Avinu were also lowlives. Right? I mean, I don't know whether there's anywhere today, if you went there, you'd have to hide a woman in a box so they wouldn't take her away, right? But maybe there's places, pretty low. That was the Mitzrim. So there were it wasn't 7 generations, it was 20 generations. It took, Avram Avinu is the 20th generation of the world. So it took 20 generations to do this, but it was 7 basic acts that pushed godliness out of the world very, very seriously. Now, what does that mean, it pushed godliness out of the world? If there's godliness pushed out of the world ceases to exist. Right? Okay, so what does it mean? It means that when we talk about revelation or concealment, what we're talking about is not more or less. Right? It's not more or less God. Right? God's not quantitative. It means how easy is it to access godliness in the world that you're in, or in the space that you're in, or in the time that you're in. Right? The easier it is to access God, the more revelation, or the more revelation, the easier it is to access God. Right? The more concealment, the harder it is to find God in that place, to experience God in that place, to, so to speak, feel godliness in that place. Right? And revelation is something that happens in different times and in different places, right? There can be a place of revelation in time where there's more revelation of godliness in that space in time than at any other time, and therefore it's easier to access godliness in that time. Yom Kippur. Every year Yom Kippur, you probably find that your davening is a little better than it is on an average Monday. Why? It's Yom Kippur. It's a revelation of God on that day that it affects you, right? It affects basically every identifying Jew. Any Jew that identifies as a Jew is affected by Yom Kippur one way or the other. Most of those Jews go to shul. They might drive, but they go to shul. Most of them fast. Well, they fast. They hate fasting. They think you're going to die if you fast. Right? I mean, we fast all the time, but not so, it's like no big deal. Tomorrow's a fast day, big deal. Okay, potatoes, you don't eat. It's like it's annoying. I mean, not like we enjoy, it's so much fun not to eat. But it's not a big deal. I mean, nothing happens. You're not going to die if you don't eat for a day. Right? People who fast one day a year, Yom Kippur, they're like, Yom Kippur, just stay up, be careful. I mean, you do have to be careful. You have to make sure that you're hydrated, because usually Yom Kippur is in a time of year where the weather is warm. So, make sure you're hydrated, and fine, you make it through the day. You get a headache, you might get a headache. Okay, nothing happens. It's not so terrible. Right? There are people who aren't allowed to fast because they're sick. Okay. But what does everybody do on Yom Kippur? Something Jewish. Everybody feels more Jewish on Yom Kippur than they feel most of the year. And that includes those people called religious. They also feel more religious on that day. Why? There's a revelation of God on that day that's very, very powerful, and it affects us, right? Does it last? Well, that's up to the person, right? We talked about that a little yesterday in terms of Sukkot. Sukkot is about bringing it into Panemius, especially Shmini Atzeres, the Rebbe taught us yesterday. Okay. But that's a state of revelation in time, in space. There are places that affect people, that they feel a stronger connection to who they are and what they are and their identity as a yid, etc. So that can be a shul, right? Almost any shul will bring that out in person. A real shul will bring that out in someone, right? Go to the Rashbi in Meron, you'll probably feel a certain upliftedness. Go to Maras Machpelah. Some people get it at the Kaisel. They feel very uplifted at the Kaisel. They find it a very, very powerful place. Lots of people, not some, lots. Right? More Jews go there than just about anywhere. Right? The Rashbi draws more people on his yahrzeit than anybody else. I mean, until the horrible accident a few years ago, so there were about 500,000 people. Now they've made it harder, but there's still 250, 300,000 people there every year on Lag Baimer. It's quite astounding. Right? In a country of 8 million people, right? It's pretty astounding how many people go there. Right? Okay. Mars Machpelah, you ever been to Mars Machpelah? Someone who doesn't feel a little something is Mars Machpelah. There's something wrong with them. I mean, my goodness gracious. This is like an amazing place. Okay. People can find that in 770. People can find that at the oil. People can find that in some old shul they went to when they were visiting in Europe. Whatever. Old shul they saw in Tunisia. There's places that are of greater revelation, so it's easier to be sensitive to godliness in that place. That's called revelation. What did these people do? They made the world a place where it was harder and harder and harder and harder to be sensitive to godliness. That's what they did. What started happening? We'll see. Avraham Avinu started the process of bringing godliness back into the world, which culminated with the building of the Mishkan in the generation of Moshe, which we'll see inside. But first, we just have to understand the Medrash. Now, what's pshat in the Medrash? Basi legani yechoisi kala. Visa b'Medrash, Rabba. Legani ksiv kanel legani legnuni. Right, to my resting place. L'makom shayikari betchila, the place that was my original place. The ikar shchina b'tachtenim haisu, that the essence of divine presence was in the lower realms. And then the Rebbe starts explaining how it left. Right? After saying what the Rebbe says in the first 3 lines, he then starts explaining how then Shechina left the world. So he's explaining the Medrash. So what does the Medrash say? I've come to my garden. It doesn't say I've come to a garden, I've come to my garden. And what's the difference according to the Medrash? A garden, my garden? What's the Medrash say? From that Yud, the Medrash learns a whole Torah, a whole Maimer. 40 Maimarim of the Rebbe.
Does he has some connection with it? He has some connection with it?
In fact, it's my garden. So I have connection to it. Okay, so then what does the Rebbe explain? How godliness left the world. So what does Basi Legani mean?
Coming back.
It means I'm coming back to my garden. Doesn't mean I'm coming to my garden. I'm coming back to my garden. Why do I have to come? Why does the Yud mean I'm coming? Well, if it's my garden, where should I be?
Yeah.
In there, right? And if I'm not, what happened? I left, right? So if I'm coming to it, it must be I was there, I left, and I came back, right? That's just simple pshat in what a house is, right? If it's your house, you don't come to your house, you come back to your house. You return to your house because you assume you were in your house at some point because it's your house, and then you left your house. You could leave your house for 10 years, beseder, but it's still your house, and now you're coming back to your house. You're not coming to your house, you're coming back to your house because it's yours. Oh, so when the Eibishter comes into Eilam Hazeh, he's coming back to Eilam Hazeh. And that's Pshat and Basi Legani. Right? We learn that from the Yud. It's my garden, so where should I be? Well, I assume if it's mine, I should be there. Oh, I'm not. Why not? Oh, that's what the Rebbe explains in line 3 through 6 or whatever, right? That the Eibishter was pushed out of the world by virtue of certain behavior in the first 20 generations of the world's history. And now the amazing pshat, exactly the same style of medrash. It didn't say X, but rather Y, just like we said. It didn't say gan, but rather gani. Now it's going to do the same thing. Another drasha. Ukadisa medrash rabbah, like it says in medrash rabbah, al pasuk v'yishma es kol havaya lakim mishalech began. He heard the voice of God. Simple pshat, walking in the garden. Who's he? Adam Arishan, right? Adam Arishan, after lunch, he hears a Kadosh Baruch Hu walking in the garden. What's his response? Goes out and greets God and gives him high five. What? He hides. He's afraid. They're both of them. They're afraid. Right? Now, it is interesting. Why should they be afraid? They've been walking around in a place of unbelievable godly revelation since they were created. Now, it's only been a few hours, but in the meantime, Adam Arishan, in those few hours, has gone to every creature and taught them how to praise God, right? And given names to everything. And I just saw last night an interesting line in a letter from the Rebbe, where the Rebbe is writing someone about something else, but mentions that there's a machlekes whether Adam Arishan gave names to the fish. It's interesting, right? Did he give names to the fish? Right? I mean, gave names to all the animals, right? How could he give names to the animals? It was explained in Shiur V'Emunah, Tanya. How did he do that? Right? What's the name of an animal? Where does it come from? The letters of the Aleph base that give that animal vitality, right? How did he ever create the world? He spoke, created the world. So what letters went into creating that animal? So the Adam Rishon saw what you and I in English call a dog, and he said, "Oh, that's a chaf lamed base." The energizing power of God in that creature is the letter chaf and the letter lamed and the letter base. So what the Eibishter do, he spoke and created the world. So this, in the letters of speech are contained the energy that brought about creation. So each thing that it's called in Lashon HaKodesh, each animal as it's called in Lashon HaKodesh, that's its vitality. So Adam Rishon walked around and said, "Oh, that's an Aleph Resh Yud. Oh, that's a Chaf Lamed Beis. Oh, that's a Ches Mem Vav Resh. Oh, that right." So he named everything. He saw the godly energy imbued in everything. Pretty holy guy. So why is he all afraid if God shows up in the garden? I understand. Who's been in the garden the whole time? Right? As a matter of fact, didn't we just say that God was in the garden, and by virtue of doing what he did, Adam Arishan pushed him out of the garden? So all of a sudden he hears God walk, so to speak, walking in the garden, and he's afraid. Why is he afraid? That's a very bizarre thing. This has been his experience the whole time. And if anything, there's less God in the garden now than more. So why is he afraid? Simple shot. Usually people think that he hears God walking in the garden, he's afraid. Afraid of what? God? Well, why? I don't understand. That's his experience. His experience is completely godly. So why is he afraid? Okay, well, let's see what the Medrash says about that. Amazing Medrash. Amar Ravi Abba. Right? Mahalech ein ksiv kan. It does not say mehalech. First word on the line is mithalech, which is reflexive walking. Mehalech is the way Tanakh says the kal form of walking, right? He's walking his dog. Right? No, he's not walking his dog. He's walking in the street. Mehalech. He can be holech also. He also will use holech. Modern Hebrew, you'll never use mahalech. You'll talk about a mahalech, the way something moves, meaning the process in which an idea is explained. Well, that'll be the mahalech of this whole thing. Okay, Beseder. But the word to walk in modern Hebrew is an iholech. If you look in Lashon HaKodesh, it's mehalech or holech, either one. Right? Okay. So it doesn't say mehalech. It doesn't say he heard God walking in the garden, kal form, simple form walking. But mithalech. Mithalech is hitpa'al, reflexive. So reflexive means, how do you walk reflexively? That's sort of hard to understand, right? It would mean walking himself, right? Reflexive is I dressed myself. I dressed myself in a sweater. Hitlabashti besveder. What most of us did today. Even Tzvi did today, right? Hitlabashti besveder. I dressed myself in a sweater. Okay, ani lovesh sweater. I'm wearing a sweater. That's a different verb form. They're both right? But hit labashti, right? Hit palalti. Oh, manyan, right? We'll figure out what that means, right? Okay. Lehit pa'el is I'm very excited, like I'm wow. Okay. So what's reflexive walking? What does that mean? Mit halech. Holding a leash and walking himself. I mean, how do you reflexively walk? Oh, so the closest you could say is, and especially in terms of what we're talking about, and look at the next words. He says, "Mahalech ein ksiv kan ela mit halech, kofitz va'ozil, kofitz va'ozil." He's jumping and going, jumping and going. So now, who's that referring to? Kadosh Baruch Hu is jumping. Where's he jumping, so to speak? Out of the world. So to speak, he's walking towards himself. Meaning, if we, it's God's everywhere, right? But the image is, so to speak, that God's above. So to speak, Kadosh Baruch Hu is jumping back towards himself, towards his source, up, above. Oh. So what were they afraid of? What did they realize? They realized they had just done. It's not that they heard a Kadosh Baruch Hu walking in the garden, so to speak, towards them, and they were afraid of encountering a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Exactly the opposite. According to this medrash, such an amazing medrash. They heard a Kadosh Baruch Hu leaving the world, and they realized what they had done. How they had completely changed metaphysical reality by virtue of that thing that they ate, whatever it was. So here the Rebbe just is simply bringing the medrash to show the idea of godliness receding from the world. And that continued through 20 generations, through different actions. Oh, and in shiur we learn that from Bosi Legani, I'm coming back to where I used to be.
So what was the hiding about?
They were afraid.
Was he ashamed?
Yeah, afraid of the Abish, they might get punished. As a matter of fact, they were. Right? It's a completely different take on it. It's so interesting. But it doesn't say Ma'alech, right? I mean, I assume if you were to look up an English translation, it would say they heard God walking in the I would assume, I don't know. The one that you should look up to see, which will be probably the best translation, is look in the California Chumash. Right? In the California Chabad Chumash, called the Rebbe's Chumash, it's called. Not Gutnik, not the Gutnik Chumash, the other English Lubavitch Chumash. It's called the Rebbe's Chumash. It was put out by Chabad of California, so it's also called the California Chumash. You look there. Be interesting to see how Rabbi Wisniewski, who shows up around here now and then, probably many of you have eaten at their house. They live 2 blocks away. Rabbi Wisniewski, how he translated, because when he translated the Torah for that Sefer, so he used about 60 different translations and looked in all of them, and non-Jewish, Jewish, everything, to see, what was the best translation.
The blue one.
What?
The blue one.
In 1 volume, it's blue. Yeah. In 5 volumes, it's brown with black on the back. Yeah, but the 1 volume is blue. Be interesting to see how he translates. What?
There are copies here.
I don't know. Has it get there? I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay. That's the best English book out there. Nothing close.
That's in Gutnik.
I think, yeah, I mean, look, if you're interested in learning Chassidus, it's much better than Gutnik. There's very little Chassidus in Gutnik.
Rabbi, are you not biased?
I am, but no, because...
You have that book, no?
I have the book.
No, you helped.
I helped write the book, yes, but very little. I mean, Moshe did it all. Moshe, with the way it worked, I love doing it. Moshe would get a list of the most important sichas from the Rebbe on a particular week. Someone in New York, Arla Raskin, who knows everything. So Arla would send Moshe a list of, the most important 10, 15 sichas on this particular parsha. Because to do the sichas on the parsha would only take a week. Everything else he did took a long time. He wrote that unbelievable, his translation has that interpolated explanation. What's that? What's it based on? All of the Rebbe's Rashi sichas. He went through all of them and wrote that. That is like an unbelievable work. That's just great. That took 2 years. Doing the Rebbe below, we did a week by week, because in a week we could do every parsha. So he'd send me the list of the 15 that let's say 15 sichas that he was going to write up, and then I could write anything else I wanted. Right. So some of the little spritzlach, not in Bereshis, I didn't do anything in Bereshis, but the others are the little spritzlach. Some of them are mine, but it's all him. He wrote the book, he put it together. It's an unbelievable book, amazing. and his writing is so good. He just has a way of explaining a very sophisticated idea in Chassidus in approachable but immaculate English. He really knows how to write. And sometimes he uses words that the rest of us don't understand, but mostly not. Right? It's just an unbelievable book. I mean, someone who knows how to learn Chassidus can read that and learn a lot of Chassidus from that book, even though it's written for everybody. It's written in English. It's written in a way that anybody who doesn't know Chassidus can understand it, but it's just astounding.
When was it first published?
Oh, probably 15, 20 years ago. It's been out there quite a while. It came after Gutnick. So for that reason, it didn't become the Chumash that people had in Chabad houses. Gutnick came out with a 1-volume Chumash first. And so all the Chabad houses bought the Gutnick Chumash. Now, it's just funny because, when he came out, when they wanted to put out their single volume for Chabad house use, so I remember talking to Moshe about it. He said, well, in 15 years, it'll hit the Chabad house shelves because the Gutnick ones are going to wear out, right? And they're going to need new Chumashim, and they'll buy this one. And that's what's happening now. You see it now in Chabad house. You didn't see it in Chabad house very much. Now you do because the Gutnick ones are wearing out. And look, they got it out there, and it's a great Chumash, the Gutnick Chumash. But this is unbelievable. It's just an unbelievable work what he did. I think he's finished. He did Haftarahs. I think he finished it. He did also Haftarahs. I don't know what he's working on now. He told me, but I always forget. He just knows a tremendous amount of Chassidus, a tremendous amount of Kabbalah also. Some guy in Malibu, some rich, I think Russian, in Malibu wanted, I think the Arizal, I'm pretty sure it's the Arizal, wanted something from the Arizal on every parsha in the Torah. He wanted to learn some Kabbalah in English, and so Chabad of California, the Cunans, asked Moshe. So he wrote a book in the garden, what's it called? In the garden of the Torah, I think it's called. So it's about this thick. And it's the Arizal in English on all the parshas of the Torah.
Wow.
It's very interesting. Right? Very interesting stuff. I think it's the Arizal. Yeah. I mean, it's either the Arizal or the Zohar, but I think it's the Arizal. It's not the Zohar. I'm pretty sure it's the Arizal. Right? He's very special. He will never let you know that, but he's very special. He'll go out of his way that you shouldn't know that, but he's very special. Okay, now what happened afterwards? 7 lines down. Va'achar kach, after godliness was pushed out of the world, amdu shiva tzadikim, 7 tzadikim stood, v'ridu es Shechina lamata, started to bring Shechina back into the world. Avram zocha v'heridu es Shechina mirakia zayin levav. It all starts with Avram Avinu, right? And that's hardest. Overcomes the inertia of it all and changes the direction of the world into a place that's now becoming more godly as opposed to less. V'yitzchak mivav lehei. Now we'll go through the middle ones, but let's read the next line. Ad ki Moshe, until Moshe, shua shvi. Moshe is the set. Now this is generation after generation. It took 20 generations to push godliness out. It took 7 to bring godliness back. Ad ki Moshe, shua shvi, is the 7th generation from Avram Avinu. V'kol hashvin chavivin, and all 7ths are dear. That parenthetical statement becomes a whole page in our Rebbe's first mimer explaining the union of the 7th generation of Lubavitch, which is our generation. Haridu lamata baretz, brought it down into the world. Right? So obviously Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov is next. Then after that, it's not so simple to figure out who's next because there's certainly choices. Yehud is a choice. Yosef is a choice. It's all sorts of people. There are 12 tzaddikim. Now you don't assume it's God or Dan, but okay, there are choices. Who is it actually? If you want to get to Moshe, how do you get to Moshe? Levi, Kahas, Amram, Moshe. Those are the generations listed in the Medrash. Avram, Yitzhak. Okay, write this down so you'll know it. I mean, if you don't write it down, I ask you tomorrow, you're not going to remember, right? If you do write it down, I ask you in 5 weeks, you will remember. Why not? Right? It's just a Medrash Chazal. Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Levi, Kahas, Amram, Moshe. Those are the 7 generations, right? Moshe Rabbeinu is the 26th generation of the world's history.
It's after Kahav?
Amram, Moshe's father. Right? And all these were the leaders of the Jewish people. We know Amram was the leader of the Jewish people in Mitzrayim. Right? When he stopped having babies, everybody stopped having babies, right? His daughter came to him and said, "You're worse than Paro. Paro made a gezerah against the boys. You've made a gezerah against everybody." So he remarried his wife, right? Miriam saved the Jewish people. So what did they do? They brought godliness down into the world. Now the Rebbe says something very interesting, and this is in Mem Vav, Tavshin Mem Vav, this year's Maimer. The Rebbe explains this a little bit. The Iker Gilu Elokus Hayab Beis Hamikdash. The Iker Gilu Elokus was in the Beis Hamikdash. You might think the Iker Gilu Elokus was at Matan Torah. So on a certain level, that's true. There was an incredibly powerful revelation of Elokus in Matan Torah. But there's a sikha where the Rebbe, it's a famous hadron. We made a hadron on the Rambam, right? Even before we were learning Rambam, 3 parakim a day, almost 10 years before. So the Rebbe said a famous sikha, the hadron on the Rambam. And they gave it into the Rebbe to edit, and the Rebbe gave it back and edited it more. And it went back and forth, and the Rebbe wouldn't let them publish what they had done until, interesting enough, 10 years later, when the takana to learn Rambam every day started. So then the first year the Rebbe gave out the hadron.
What does Hadron
Hadron means literally we will return, but it's what you say when you finish something. When you finish a Masechta in Shas, so you say what's called a hadron. So the Rebbe he said a sikha about the Rambam, and one of the things the Rebbe said about the Rambam is very, very interesting. The Rebbe points out in the Rambam that everything in the Rambam is dual. That the Rambam looks at everything from 2 perspectives: the sur meira of it, the stay away from evil of it, and the v'asei tov of it, and the do good of it. And that brings a number of examples. I mean, it's a 50-page hadron. By the time it finishes, it's 50 pages long. Right? The Rebbe explains the duality in the Rambam, right? Looking at everything from 2 different points of view. And if you look just even in the beginning of the Rambam, the language, the Rambam will say, I mean, I can't. I should be able to quote it, but I can't. Right? But the Rambam talks about the unity of God and the lack of duality of God, and everything's looked at from both points of view. And so, in relative to this, the Rebbe says something very interesting about the Iker Gilui being in the Beis Hamikdash. The most powerful revelation of the Eibishter, the Rebbe says, is in the Beis Hamikdash. You would think it might be Matan Torah, because Moshe Rabbeinu also did that. Right? Dafka, because in the Beis Hamikdash there is a duality. There's physical reality and godly reality, and yet the revelation of the Eibishter is found in the physical. So the most powerful revelation is Dafka in the place where the physical exists. Matan Torah was a complete bittul of physical reality temporarily. People died, literally. The Yidden died and were brought back to life after each of the first 2 dibros, and then said to the Eibishter, they said to Moshe Rabbeinu, "You listen, we can't." Right? Whereas in the Beis Hamikdash, no, the duality of reality was there, the spirituality and physicality of it, the asay tov, the do good of it, and the sur meira, and stay away from evil of it. They're both there. Similar to what we talked about yesterday relative to the uniqueness of Yocheved on one hand, and Jewish women in general, relative to Geula. Right? Okay, so the Rebbe says here, "Ve'ikar gila elokusai b'beis hamikdash, dichsi v'asali mikdash v'shachanti b'seicham." Now this pasuk is going to be a very important pasuk throughout the whole Maimer, because our avodah v'asali mikdash will produce v'shachanti b'seicham. Now, simple pshat is, make for me a mikdash and I will dwell amongst them. Now, dwell amongst them will mean I'll dwell in the mikdash amongst them, right? But interesting enough, what's the drasha the Frierdiker Rebbe says now? Exactly the same style. It's simple pshat in the pasuk. What should it say? Build for me mikdash and I will dwell in it. Make me a house and I'll live in it. It doesn't say that. They should make me a house and I'll dwell amongst them. Okay, now again, simple pshat, you could say I'll dwell amongst them. By virtue of the fact that I'm dwelling in the mikdash, I'll dwell amongst them. Okay, that's certainly simple pshat in the pasuk. Right? But it doesn't say b'seichai, it says b'seicham in order to teach us something. What does it teach us? Exactly the same style. But this is the Frierdiker Rebbe saying this, not It's not a Medrash Chazal. It doesn't say I'll dwell in it. Ela b'seicham, amongst them. And what does that mean? B'seich kol echad ve'echad, in each and every one. And we'll see as we go through the Maimer that the whole of Veda, of Asuli Migdash, those things that you and I do in order to connect ourselves to Kedusha, to holiness, will bring about a situation where godliness resonates in our conscious reality. B'seich kol echad ve'echad. Our challenge in Eilam Hazeh is to become a person for whom godliness is real. We experience it. We're conscious of it. It's not just what we do, tells us what to do. That's important. That's the ikar. But it's also what we experience. V'zeu tzadikim yirshu aretz, v'yishkenu la'ad aleho, and this is the pasuk. Tzadikim will inherit the land. Now, simple pshat is they will dwell forever on it. Okay, that's simple pshat in that pasuk. Okay, but the Rebbe is going to those last three words. Well, really, two of them. The Rebbe is going to take completely out of context and teach us a drasha. The word v'yishkenu, they will dwell, which I'm sorry for all the grammar today, but that's kal form. The Rebbe is going to turn it into causative. V'yashkinu, they cause to dwell. And the word la'ad is not going to mean forever. It's going to refer to a certain level of godliness, referred to as ad. They cause that level of godliness called ad to dwell upon it. They draw down into the world a very, very lofty, transcendent level of godly reality. That's what those words are going to mean. Now let's see how. The tzadikim yirshu aretz. The beginning of the pasuk is simple. Tzadikim yirshu aretz shu gan eden. What does it mean they'll inherit the land? The land means Gan Eden. They'll inherit the Gan Eden. In other words, they'll be privy to a tremendously powerful revelation of godliness. That's Gan Eden, a place of revelation. Mipnei ma. Why are they privy to this great revelation of Gan Eden? Because of what they did. This isn't they get A and B. This is they get A because of B. Mipnei ma. Why? Lefi shehem mashkinim. Draw down. Cause to dwell. Hainu mamshichim, that means to draw down. What do they draw down? Ad. What's ad? Bechinas, the level of godliness that's referred to as sheikhein ad, marim v'kadosh. You say in davening. Right? Sheikhein ad. So now, simple pshat, sheikhein ad, marim v'kadosh. What's simple pshat of those words? You say them all the time. What do they mean? Simple pshat. What does sheikhein mean? Dwell. Ad. Simple pshat in the word ad. What does it mean? Until. What's marom v'kadosh?
Greatness and loneliness.
Right. Loftiness. Two words of loftiness. Transcendence. He dwells in transcendent places. Okay. Fine. That's simple pshat. Okay. But what's the drasha? He dwells on a level called ad. And what is ad? Marim v'kadosh. Ad is a place of tremendous transcendence. Sheikhein ad dwells in that level called ad. Now ad, interesting enough, can mean eternal, ni'elam v'ed. Ad can also mean ornaments, ed yam. After Chet Egel, what does it say? We took off our ornaments, ed yam. Something very lofty, something very special in time, something beyond time. Okay, but in this context, what does it mean? A very lofty, godly level, ad. Oh, so what do? They draw this lofty level of godliness down, aleho, on it, into the world. V'yishkanu la'ad aleho means, simple pshat, they dwell forever on it. That's what it means in simple pshat. What does it mean in this Chassidish drasha? V'yashkinu, the tzaddikim merit Gan Eden because they cause to dwell, they draw down that lofty, transcendent level of godliness called ad aleho, into the world. Wow. Right? Okay. And what does that mean? Shia begilui lamata. That should be revealed below. So what are tzaddikim all about? Tzaddikim are all about bringing about a revelation of godliness in the world. And what is their, so to speak, reward for that? An experience of godliness. that's asuli mikdash v'shechanti b'seichem. Do those things that bring about a revelation of me in Olam Hazan. We'll figure out what that is. The Rebbe is going to teach us very, very clearly what the avodah of asuli mikdash is. Do those things, and what will happen? God will dwell in your conscious reality. V'zeu, and this is the end of the first half of the Maimon. This is the end of the headline. V'zeu basi legani, I mean the first half of the first ois, but this is the headline. V'zeu basi legani, and this is what it means, basi legani, legnuni, to my resting place, lamakim shayikara betchila, the place that was his essential place originally. Why? The essence of the divine presence was ultimately revealed in the lower realms. The most powerful revelation of godliness was in this world. That's what the Eibusher wants. The Eibusher wants a dir b'tachtenim. So he created a dir b'tachtenim, and then he destroyed it right away. Right? Sixth day of creation was eating. We've talked about this so many times. The Chet Eitz Hadas happened on the sixth day of creation. It's not part of the history of the world. It's part of the creation of the world. Right? The Eibusher created a perfect world and then destroyed it, and then ended up with the world that he wanted. That one, not the perfect one, the one that wasn't perfect. Right? And then he said, "That's okay. You perfect it." Okay. Ultimately, how do we perfect it? Well, there's a second point in the creation of the world, right? The second point in the creation of the world is Matan Torah, right? And that's hinted at in Ma'aseh Bereshis. What is it in the account of the creation of the world that hints at the centrality of the giving of the Torah in the completion of the creation of the world? Rashi on Chumash. You say it every Friday night. Yom HaShishi. What's unique about Yom HaShishi? Every other time, every other day mentioned in the 6 days, what does it say? What's missing? The hay. There's no hay. Yom Echad, day 1. Yom Sheni, day 2. Yom Shlishi, day 3. Yom Revi, day 4. Yom Chamishi, day 5. Yom HaShishi, day 6. The day 6. Rashi and Chumash. What does Rashi say? 2 pshatim. These are things we have to remember. Now, I know you saw it in Bereshis, but you also probably did that in, like, Simchas Torah the day before, rushing through and not knowing what you're reading. Oh my gosh, there's so much here and I have to do this so fast. It's chaval, because Bereshis is a hittus that we don't do very well because we're rushing through it to try to finish it. Okay. The Seder. But what's the hay? So 2 pshatim in Rashi. But you all have homework. Right? And the homework is to look them up between now and tomorrow morning shiur. Or there won't be a cup of coffee unless we bring Mashiach. And I imagine if we bring Mashiach, we're not going to be sitting here at 7:30 in the morning. We're going to be for bringing all night, and we're going to be pretty tired at 7:30 in the morning. But who knows? We'll see. Maybe we don't have to sleep. So 2 pshatim. But your homework is everybody has to look up these 2 pshatim between now and tomorrow shiur. Rashi, Bereshis, right? It's not hard to find. Yom HaShishi, right? It's easy to find. Just start at the beginning and see what happens. Find the pasuk and go. 2 pshatim. One is HaShishi is the 6th. Which 6th? The 6th of Sivan, when the Torah was given. The second pshat is Yom HaShishi. The hay refers to the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, the 5 books of the Torah. Both pshatim and Rashi relate to Matan Torah. Because when was the world, the completion of the creation of the world? Matan Torah. And interesting enough, Matan Torah mirrors the creation of the world itself. The creation of a perfect state from above. Right? What does it say at the time of Matan Torah? Pascha zu masam, there's no tomb in the world. Right? And immediately what happened? Right after Matan Torah? All right. Let's destroy this perfect reality. Revert back to what was. But what now? Now the world can start. There's a perfectly imperfect world. There's a people called Am Yisrael, and there's a thing called Torah, and those things are going to work together. Those 2 things, Am Yisrael and Torah, are going to work together in order to bring about the perfection of this world and make it dir b'tachtenim. Now we're ready to go. The curtain can really open and history starts. Up until then, it's all just, setting the stage, so to speak. Okay, fine. That's the way God created the world. Right? So that's why, interesting enough, hinted at in the creation of the world is the fact that, well, it really starts. When's the end of it really? When's Yom Hashishi really? Matan Torah. Now the world's ready to go, because without the Torah, we can't fix it. Right? Okay. So let's see what the Rebbe says quickly, and then we'll stop. The ultimate purpose in the creation, hithavut. Lihiot is to be. Lehavot is to cause to be, which you and I can't do. Only God can give something being. Lehavot. Hithavut is the giving of being to, right? The being of the world. Bria is creation. Hithavut, the giving of being of the Elamis, of the worlds. We'll see what that means, worlds. Why did the Abishah create all this? And you've seen this 1,000 times. The Nis'ava Kadosh Baruch Eliyah Baruch, that the Abishah wanted, that there should be for him, a dwelling place in the lower realms. Where is that? That's a medrash, Tanchuma, Parshas Nosei, Ois, I think Tesvav or Tesayin, I can never remember, right? But it's in Parshas Nosei in the Tanchuma. The Tanchuma of Bamidbar is unique because most of Rashi on Sefer Bamidbar comes from the Tanchuma. Medrash Tanchuma. Rabbi Tanchum was a Talmud of Rav Huna. The Rav Huna that you've run into in the Gemara a number of times, Rabbi Tanchum was his Talmud. So he compiled a bunch of medrashim, very, very, very famous medrash Tanchuma. Right, so that's where you'll find the medrash that says the Eibishter wanted a dir b'tachtonim, he wanted a dwelling place in the lower realms. What does that mean? So it's very important to see what that means, because after all, you could always say to the Eibishter, you know what? You want a dwelling place in the lower realms? Well, just so get it together, make a dwelling place in the realms. What do you want from me? I mean, you can do whatever you want. You're kol yachol. You're omnipotent. There's nothing you can't do. You want there to be a place which mitzad the nature of the place conceals you, but even there you're completely revealed. So fine, you can do that. You're completely unlimited. So do that. So he did. Gan Eden, right? The world right after Matan Torah, he did it already. Right? But then he destroyed it. Why? Oh, because what's his taiva? His taiva wasn't that he wants a dir b'tachtonim. What was his taiva? The ikar shechina sorry. Well, I skipped way back. The nisava kadosh baruch liyas baruch dir b'tachtonim. And what's that mean? She'agila elokus lamata, that should be a revelation of godliness below, al yedei avedas ha'adam, through our aveda. The Eibishter doesn't just want a dir b'tachtonim. He wants a dir b'tachtonim that you and I made. He can make a dir b'tachtonim. He knows how to do that. Matter of fact, relative to him, he already did. When the Eibishter looks at Olam Hazeh, what does he see? Himself. What's the problem? You and I don't. Oh, so he wants you and I to see what he sees when he looks at Olam Hazeh. Olam Hazeh is him. Ain't no vadir. There's nothing else. It's all him. Oh, okay. That's absolute truth, but you and I live relative truth. We're trying to line up relative truth with absolute truth, and that's revealing godliness in Olam Hazeh.
Making it his way rather than our way.
Making it obviously his place. It is his place, right? But he wants you and I to experience that. Right? How do we do that? That's called a Veda. That he had a taiva for that. Why a taiva? I don't know. It says nisave. What's unique about a taiva? So Chassidus explains very, very, very clearly the difference between a taiva and a ratzon. Right? A taiva is a longing. A ratzon is a will. What's the difference? So when the technical difference between them is, meaning they can be used interchangeably, right? But the technical difference is that a taiva can't be explained rationally. If you emphasize taiva, then you're talking about a level of reality, a desire that can't be explained rationally. Whereas ratzon is a level that can be explained rationally. I want to drink a water. Why? I have something in my throat. Right? I'm coughing and I have something in my throat and I want to, clear up my throat. I want a cup of hot tea. Why? My throat's sore. Or I just came in from the rain. Whatever. Right? All sorts of ratzon note that you have that can be explained rationally. Right? You might, something that you might refer to as a taiva, and we've talked about this before, right? You come in on a hot day and you make yourself a cup of tea. and your roommate, who might be one of your older children, or might be your wife, or someone will say, what are you doing making a cup of tea? Like it's 90 degrees outside and you're all schwitzy, right? Hopefully your roommate will not be who it is now for too long, right? Okay, as wonderful as they are, you want to have roommates that you're related to. But why do you want a cup of tea? So what might be a reason? This will be a good answer. They'll stop asking you if you say, I don't know. I just have a taiva for a cup of tea. Okay, now there's no questions. Right? Why do you have a taiva for a cup of tea? Well, that's a stupid question, right? What does Chazal say? What do our Rebbeim say? Explaining the lashon in Chazal, nit aved, that the Eibush had a taiva. It doesn't say the Eibush wanted. It says the Eibush had a taiva for a dir b'tachtonim. The Eibush has taivas? Yeah, meaning there's a level of desire of the Eibush that can't be explained rationally, even by his rationale. Even Chachmas Hashem can't explain it because it's coming from a deeper place. Right? What do we say? By a taiva frekmen nitkain kasha. By a taiva, a person can't ask a question. Why do you have a taiva for tea? Stupid question. I don't know why I have a taiva for tea. You can't answer that. I just do. Leave me alone. Right? It's mutter. I have a taiva for an aveira. So you might ask, what are you doing? Oh, okay, good. Try to keep me away from that. That's a good thing to do. Right? Taiva for a cup of tea. So let me be a moron and have my cup of tea. What do you care? Right? Because I have a taiva. So some of the Eibush had a taiva for dir b'tachtonim. And let's see two more words. And what are the two? And we'll see this tomorrow. We'll explain tomorrow. But what are the two levels of aveda? Iskafia and ishafcha. Those are the two levels of aveda that the Eibishter wants us to involve ourselves in to bring about a dir b'tachtonim. What's iskafia? Subduing the Yetzer Hara, meaning not listening to it, overcoming it. There might be a desire, mitzad the nefesh habahamis, to do something that is against the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I overcome that desire and don't do it. Or there might be a desire not to do something that the Eibishter wants me to do, and I overcome that laziness and do it. Do what the Eibishter wants. This kafia works both ways. Right? So that's the first level of avodah. And then Yishafka. Yishafka is transforming the Yetzer Hara. So meaning ultimately bringing about a situation where certain things that I might have had a taiva for 5 years ago, I no longer have a taiva for them. I've overcome that taiva. Yishafka. Right? Transforming. Yishkafia literally means to force. Right? And Yishafka literally means to transform. Right? Okay. So the first level of avodah is kafia. The person who wants to quit smoking cigarettes has to do his kafia first. He can't do his hafcha. He can't wait around until he's become a person who doesn't want a cigarette. It's not going to work. Right? What does he do? He forces himself not to smoke cigarettes for a while. Right? And then over time, 5 years later, what? No longer has a desire for cigarettes. The physical desire disappears in 2 weeks. The physical addiction. The emotional addiction takes a long time. Okay, how do you do that? So you and I can do that in other things also, not just cigarettes. Okay. Ask one of the guys.
Yeah, but you give us the answer.